All right, what is up? Welcome back to Speech to the Sports. This is Bert. Today I'm joined by Sparsh and Luke, and today we're just going to be talking about. Look, if you're a Sixers fan, click off this video unless you want to hear you can be slandered. All right, we're just going to slander the Sixers their process, and how we're going to talk about how it failed and how all the moves they've made that have just led to this giant downfall in their team, to where they're kind of in a spot now. It's very difficult to get out from unless they blow it up again. Which would really suck for them because they were really bad when they blew it up the first in the last time at least.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start off with some questionable draft picks, right? Sam Hinkie, his one goal was to get as many draft picks as possible, right? Cool, that's a cool strategy. That strategy does not work if you can't nail the draft picks. If you can't nail they've actually made some solid draft picks. Problem is they've just traded them away for either nothing or for worse role players than what these players turned out to be. So let's kick off. So in 2009 they drafted Drew Holiday, right? And this is when they're still trying to compete. And they also took Evan Turner, which was bust, and they took Vucevic in 2011. Then in 2013, they decide to rebuild. So they trade Drew Holiday, I believe Evan Turner as well, eventually, and Nikola Vucevic. That was their first mistake. Why would you trade someone you literally just drafted 2 years ago when you're starting a rebuild? Why are you trading away a 22-year-old in a rebuild? That's a guy you would want to keep around. He's a young player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then what they did with this pick was they picked Michael Carter-Williams in 2013, who had one good season and then was really bad for the rest of his career there.
Isn't his main highlight was just that one rookie game he started off with? He got like 20 something points and like nearly had a triple double to start. That's literally all I remember him for.
And I believe they traded Vucevic for Nerlens Noel. So they swapped a center for a center basically. They swapped them for the pick that they drafted Nerlens Noel with. So now let's kind of look at the roster. They have Michael Carter-Williams, Nerlens Noel. Okay, decent. At the time, I was like, okay, this is a solid 1-2 punch, maybe in the pick and roll and stuff like that, right? Then let's look at the year after that. They draft Joel Embiid, who I believe didn't even play his rookie season. He was just hurt. He was out. But This was the one great pick that they made. Like, this is the best pick they've made in the last decade.
Even then, like, this pick was a pretty big gamble.
Yeah,
as well, especially considering itself. Yeah, he did sit out that entire season pretty much because of that, his back. And I mean, even then, like still throughout the season now, like it's hard for him to play like 60 plus games. But I mean, then again, this is definitely their best move because when you see him at his best, this is an MVP type caliber player, easily. He's one of the strongest big men in the league. Easily creates the mismatches to whoever's guarding him. Like, yeah, it's pretty much over. And this guy's also getting pretty good shooting from the three as well. So this is definitely their best pick for sure.
And let me tell you who they drafted in the second round that same year. They drafted Jeremy Grant, who is turning into a fringe. Yeah, he's turning into a fringe all-star at this point. And funny enough, we'll get into what they did with Jeremy Grant later. But let's move forward. So now let's look at their pieces. They have Jeremy Grant, they have Joel Embiid, they have Michael Carter-Williams, and they have Nerlens Noel. All these guys, except for Jeremy Grant, were lottery picks. Joel Embiid was top 3. Michael Carter-Williams was the 11th overall, and Joel Embiid was the 3rd overall.
Another thing, don't forget, they also salvaged Robert Covington off the waiver wire, and that year as well with that 12th pick, they got Dario Saric.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean that, and like at that time, there was lots of sort of praise towards Dario Saric. People were like thinking he could be like the next Tony Kukoc kind of player, right? So
now they have an even bigger pool of players, right? So they have Nerlens Noel, Joel Embiid, Michael Carter-Williams, Jeremy Grant, Robert Covington, Dario Saric. These are 6 solid players right here to start a rebuild with, right? It's looking good right now.
Very, very.
Right? And I think this is where everything just fell apart, was the 2015 draft. They had a top 3 pick, and they took another center, another one. And to top it all off, they actually took another center in the second round. They took Jahlil Okafor with the 3rd overall pick, who, look, let's be honest, like, people were thinking he was going to be really good, but the way the NBA was evolving at that point, it was his play style would never have lasted to the modern day, and it still doesn't. I mean, he's riding the bench for the Pistons right now.
I mean, he had a good season. I just pulled up his stats on his debut season. 17.5 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 1.2 blocks per. I mean, pretty great. But then, yeah, right. It's like when you're drafting all these centers, and then like this sort of offense is transitioning to more of like, fast transition play, 3-point style offense. He just couldn't fit into it, right? And when you're getting these sort of centers, like, okay, I can maybe understand one, especially if you need some other backup big. But then now they're starting to like overload on this, right?
Yeah, and also you got to kind of understand, like, in the moment of like when they were rebuilding, they were a horrible team. Like, they were consistently the worst team in the league for like 4 years in a row, and like I forgot exactly how bad it got, but I know they ended up with one of the worst records in the entire NBA. 9-73. Like,
yeah,
they couldn't even win double-digit games in a full season, right? That's horrible. The Bobcats technically had a worse record and winning percentage, but they had a shortened season. So honestly, I don't really count them as the worst team ever. I count that Sixers team as the worst team ever.
That was honestly like a really, really bad time for Philly. I remember that. And it starts to get better, right? Because then, after that sort of crazy season, 2016 comes, and then they get Ben Simmons.
I did forget to I forgot to mention.
Oh yeah.
The second center they took in the 2015 draft was Rashawn Holmes. All right. So look at the roster now. They have like 4 centers on their roster, and none of these guys can play together. None of them can play power forward. None of them can really shoot besides Embiid, but he developed his shooting. He didn't come with it right out of the gate. And they also have Michael Carter Williams and a few other pieces. This team, was never built correctly because they were losing so much. They never established a winning identity. They never were able to teach their players how to win, their young guys how to win, until Ben Simmons kind of came along, and we'll talk about that too.
It's crazy because like I know, like I was just saying that, and you said, I forgot one point. It's just like there's so many centers at this point that we're honestly like losing track of all these. There's just so many that we have to like keep track of. And I mean, and even after like Ben Simmons, like get him right, what he was also out for that year as well.
Yeah. Right.
He just that mean that was also kind of something that they had to like really consider. But then again, at that time, he definitely had that praise. Like people were saying, oh, this guy's definitely going to be either the next LeBron or like the next Magic. Like for somebody coming out of LSU, like that's where he played at, and he had such a big frame and sort of great athleticism and like playmaking to his skill set already, right? I mean, this was definitely another good pick.
Ben Simmons?
Ben Simmons, yeah.
You looking for Ben Simmons to LeBron James?
I mean, that's what they were saying in 2016.
I've never heard anyone compare Ben Simmons.
That was a long time back.
I hated that comparison so much because even as I was like, I wasn't like super into the NBA, but that was when I started getting into the NBA, and I was like, I do not see the LeBron comparisons. Well, you could kind of see it with the frame and like with his playmaking, but like, that's kind of where it ended. He didn't have the same. I never believed he had the same mentality. I never believed he had the same potential to score, like shooting wise. His numbers shooting were still really bad. They've been really bad his entire career. But I remember everyone was heralding him as the savior of Philadelphia. Like everyone was like, Ben Simmons is here. Like our rebuild is done. We're not going through another 9-win season again. like that.
Yeah, and like people got even more hyped, like that LeBron and Simmons matchup that everybody was sort of waiting for. And LeBron dropped 44 and then Simmons dropped 27, and Sixers fans were just like, oh, this is it, finally.
LeBron fueled the hype a little bit too because you kept calling him the Fresh Prince and stuff like that. But
those IG captions, yeah.
And I also want to say, so from 2010 to 2017, so in a 7-year period, right? They had 4 top 3 picks. And with 2017, we might as well get into that right now. Luke, you started watching like 2016, right? Or like 2017. Mm-hmm. So do you remember who the Sixers traded for in the 2017 draft? They traded up to the number 1 pick.
Oh. In 2017?
Yeah, they were at 3. They traded up to 1 for Markelle Fultz.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah, and that I don't blame them for that because that was kind of, there's nobody really knows what happened. There's speculation about he got into a motorcycle accident and messed up his shoulder like that.
I forget he exists. I always think about him in Orlando. I don't ever think about Sixers.
Dude, it was just so weird because this guy, I don't know what sort of happened, but do you remember that time when he was at the free throw line? He goes like this and he kind of he literally just stops mid shot and like to sort of readjust his form. It's just like he literally sort of forgot how to shoot, and like that's why a lot of people were saying at that time that it must have been some sort of accident, right? Because if there must have been some sort of traumatic injury that caused some sort of like nerve damage or something, so that makes you sort of reset, like you're basically practically learn the mechanics again.
For sure, it must.
That was a tough one, and it looked
painful.
Yeah, and it's even worse because at that time, right? Like that's the Celtics trade with the Sixers, where the Celtics they traded that number 1 pick and to get to the number 3 pick in draft considerations, and to see what the Celtics were able to get out of that. They trade down and they get Jason Tatum. And now the Sixers, they don't even have Markelle Fultz, right? They didn't even have him playing much after that injury recovery. I mean, they're like, once he came back, I mean, he had that 1 triple-double, I guess. People were like, oh yeah, he's doing great. But then again, it's just like he's out. And now Tatum, like this guy's a superstar, man. Like,
yeah, imagine if the Sixers got Tatum. That would have been kind of crazy. They might have been to some Eastern Conference Finals by now.
Dude, Tatum was already such a star from like the beginning, man. Remember that like rookie sort of run, and that playoffs where he like dunks on LeBron, man. That was a good time, man, for Boston. It's like,
I think Tatum was gonna end up in Boston either way because I think Boston said that they were gonna take him at number 1, but they saw the opportunity to trade down, get something, and still get still get Jason Tatum, so they took it.
Yeah.
But but if they had taken Tatum 1 overall, that would have changed the rest of the draft, because then for the Lakers, it's like, do you still take Alonzo there, or do you now take the number 1 prospect, right? So the Lakers might have taken Markelle, and the Sixers might have ended up with either Fox or Ball, right? It could have changed a lot if they just never made that trade. It also just could have
basketball. Very weird year for basketball.
It was very, very weird. Honestly, that draft, I do not know how Lonzo went above Fox.
I think that was the most overhyped.
LeVar really marketed his sons.
It was LeVar and it was Mike Curzon.
not just Mike Curzon, but even Magic Johnson as well. Like Magic Johnson was saying this. Magic was like, "Oh yeah, this guy's jersey. It's gonna be in the rafters and stuff." I'm just like,
compared him to himself. Like, come on.
I'm just like, man, that's a lot of pressure you're putting on the kid. And
Lonzo's good, but I don't know about 2nd overall pick good. Like, that's what I was always like thinking.
I'd probably draft him like 10. He looks like he should be drafted 10.
Luke, you exist to slander everybody.
I mean, he's good. He's not a 2nd overall pick.
Yeah. I mean, in 2017, they also did make another solid move. They got JJ Redick during the free agency that time, right? So they had some like 3-point shooting. But I mean, they finally got rid of Jahlil Okafor, Nick Stauskas, and a 2019 2nd rounder. to the Brooklyn Nets for Trevor Booker. I mean, then again, right? I can understand, like Jahlil Okafor getting traded because not only was he, like the play style starting to change a lot. I mean, it's already pretty much changed, right? 2017, it's like the Steph Curry, LeBron sort of kind of time, right? But like he also wasn't really doing much defensively as well. And
I mean, also like,
oh yeah, go ahead.
It was gonna come to that because they drafted 4 centers. They also traded Rashawn Holmes for cash considerations, and now he is like one of the top defenders at his position in the NBA. They didn't have any patience with a lot of these guys they drafted, which is so weird because they're going through a rebuild. Like, I think a lot of it was that pressure. It was just the embarrassment of being so bad because they were like, nobody had seen a team that bad before. Like that.
I mean, hey, they let go of a center, but they get another one, man. I mean, they after they shipped Nerlens Noel, they got a package: Justin Anderson, Andrew Bogut, and 2 second rounders. I mean, Bogut. This guy, after that championship run, injuries like derailed him. He does he even play in the NBA anymore? I don't think so. I think he plays in Australia now, doesn't he?
Bogut?
Yeah.
I don't think he plays anymore.
Yeah, it's just like, geez, like, yeah, no, but like he was a solid player for the Warriors, but man, those injuries really messed him up. This guy's had some crazy freaky injuries, man.
Yeah.
But can't really blame them about like for the Andrew Bogut situation because he was a really great piece for the Warriors. It's just, hindsight, right? It's just injuries really messed this guy up during that time. So.
Sure. And so that was 2017. They actually were a decent team, I believe, that year.
Yeah, somewhat decent.
Yeah, I believe that was the first year they made the playoffs together, like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. So I mean that was pretty good. And then
2018 happens.
Oh, I knew you were gonna get to this one, Luke.
Yeah, so they make a trade that like anybody would on paper, right? Where they traded for Jimmy Butler. That was 2018, right? 2018-19.
2018-19.
That's a trade anyone would make on paper. They traded Robert Covington, Dario Saric, and I believe a conditional pick. And at the time, it was like, dang, they stole Jimmy Butler, right? Looking back, it's like that was a half a year rental. They rented him for half a year. They didn't have the foundation in place from their coaching, from their general management. They didn't have the foundation in place of a winning culture. So they didn't have the foundation to keep Jimmy Butler because that's all Jimmy Butler's about. He just wants to win.
There was also like right after the playoffs, they lose to the Raptors in that Eastern Conference semifinals. There was lots of rumors. I mean, not just rumors, reports also coming out that Jimmy Butler was having a really strained relationship with Brett Brown, even also with like Ben Simmons as well. And I knew it was over once they gave Tobias that contract. I mean, and like once they gave Tobias that contract, I just knew for sure like Jimmy Butler was definitely out of there. I mean, it's just unfortunate because this guy, he's definitely one of those guys that can bring you right over the top. And I mean, like, to be fair, like at least during that time, the Sixers definitely could have made it to the finals just as easily.
100%.
That was, yeah, that's true. Yeah, they could have won. I mean, that was probably the best version of the Sixers.
For sure.
Best version for sure. I mean, it's just, I mean, they lost to the champs. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it went to literally a Game 7 buzzer beater, just like bounces like 4 times. But the fact that they weren't really able to keep him, and like things got worse, sort of in the locker room after that, it didn't look so great on the Sixers after that.
That's something Jimmy Butler said, was that he felt like there's a lack of accountability, and that's what I was trying to talk about with there's a lack of foundation for a winning team and a winning culture. Just because they exploded onto the scene into the playoffs and had a decent run and they looked decent, did not mean that they were ready to seriously contend. It did not mean they have a winning culture. Brett Brown was with them while they were losing, So another thing that happened was that Luke, they gave the Suns a finals appearance by by trading Mikal Bridges. They had the 10th overall pick and drafted Mikal Bridges.
He's a hometown kid, isn't he?
You know what's funny too?
Yeah,
We currently have Landry in 2018. Mikal Bridges was drafted by Philadelphia. Landry Shamet was drafted by Philadelphia. We have Darius Saric, who was on the 76ers. And then they also drafted Kostas onto Tecumpo that year. And they're all gone.
That's what I'm saying. The role players that they've drafted, they didn't give them time to develop, and they just shipped them out for nothing.
Oh, and Isaac Bonga.
I mean, he's the greatest. He's the greatest player of all time. That's a different story. So, yeah. So Mikal Bridges
and Ray Spalding.
Yes.
Why do they have so many dang draft picks this year?
They sold the guy who made the basketball.
Thompson. I mean, Kiri Thomas.
He's all right. I haven't heard much about him recently. But okay, so they had the 10th overall pick. They were sitting there, and they were like, "We don't want the 10th overall pick." For some reason, they wanted to trade down, right? Even though Mikal Bridges, his mom literally worked for the organization. She was so happy that he got drafted. And in his post-draft interview, he was talking about how he loves it there. He wants to win a championship for Philly, all that stuff, right? Then they trade him on draft night for a later pick, which they took, I believe, Zaire Smith with.
Yeah, Smith.
He hasn't done anything. He's been injured for his entire career, which is very unfortunate. That was a massive waste of a pick. They really, if they had kept Mikal Bridges, they'd be in a better spot now. But they didn't, and now they gave the Suns their
such a versatile player, and like he's such a great defender, and like he can shoot from the three, and that's what the Sixers needed.
I was mad when Mikal Bridges went there because I don't like the Sixers.
That was one of the biggest shocks of that draft night, man. Like everybody was shocked when they traded down. I'm just like, why? And you're drafting a kid. You're drafting a kid like a hometown kid as well. Like this guy clearly would have loved to play there. I don't know.
I gotta look at the exact what they got back, because I'm not sure if it was straight up, like it was a straight up swap, or if they got something as well. They got a 2021 first rounder from the Heat, from the Suns. The Suns had a 2021 first rounder for them.
Yeah.
Have fun with the 30th pick.
Who did they take with that pick? Wait. Let me check.
No, it hasn't happened yet. That would be next year's pick.
No, it just happened, Luke. Next
2021, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. That'd be the 30th. Wait.
They traded that pick because they did not pick there.
Because I was gonna say.
They traded to the Thunder, I believe, actually.
Wait.
Yeah, but so they traded Landry Shamet. They traded all these solid role players they had, which I understand. They got Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler back, but they couldn't keep Jimmy Butler, which was the one guy they should have kept. And it was at that moment everything really started to unravel.
Yeah.
They didn't do much in the 2019 draft. All their draft picks were basically traded away, except for a guy I think they sent overseas.
Are you talking about 2019?
Yeah.
I know they drafted Ty Jerome, who's not there anymore.
He was traded to Boston, who then traded that to Phoenix.
And then Phoenix traded that to...
They drafted Carson Edwards, who was actually pretty decent, but they traded that to Boston as well. Bruno Fernando, he's actually decent. They traded him to Atlanta. Admiral Schofield, he hasn't done anything so far. Traded him to Washington.
And
honestly,
Mariel Sayok.
Yeah. And 2019 was just was that the year they lost to the Celtics?
That was not like the no, I don't think.
No, that was the next year. That was next
2020 was that bubble
yeah.
Bubble meltdown against the Celtics, right? Was like 4-1 Celtics won that series?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, it was a pretty ugly loss for Philly. I mean, I guess.
Wait, 2019 was when they went to the. Sorry, 2019 was when they almost went to the Eastern Conference Finals. That was against the Raptors.
Oh yes, so 2019. Yes, 2019 was Raptors. 2020 was the
And-
Celtics one.
Yeah,
I'm getting my dates mixed
I mixed
up.
up 2018 and 2019. I mixed up those 2 years. 2018, I believe they were the 3rd seed that year.
Yes.
And they made a decent run, but they didn't get very far. But yeah, so now 2019, they losing that heartbreak. Now they lose Jimmy Butler. Now 2020 was the bubble year. Ben Simmons got hurt. They had like nobody on their team that was providing anything except for Joel Embiid. He was carrying that entire team on his back. And they lost 4-1 against Boston, which nobody expected them to.
And is that the year they picked up Dwight Howard?
Yes, that was the year they had Dwight Howard, I believe.
No. Dwight Howard was on the Lakers in that bubble run. Yeah.
No, that's right.
Yeah, he was joined the year after.
And then, which was this past season, and then he left.
Yeah, he went from
and went back
Washington
to
to the Lakers to the Sixers, back to the Lakers.
Yes, yeah.
Third time's a charm, I guess.
And then, but they did one really good thing that year. They drafted Tyrese Maxey, so that was one really good thing on their part. They also drafted Theo Maledon, who's actually looked really solid, especially in summer league. But they traded him to OKC. Yeah. Drafted Isaiah Joe. I'm not sure exactly what he could be in the draft.
Joe.
Yeah. So right now, their biggest pieces, right? One really good trade they did make was Josh Richardson for Seth Curry.
That was probably one of their other like better moves of that. Like I said in like another video, one of the things that the Sixers really suffer from is their lack of 3-point shooting. Yeah. They really don't make, they just don't attempt 3-pointers. I think they're ranked 5th in the league. 5th lowest in the league in actually making the attempts of threes per game. And when you add Seth Curry to that roster, holy crap, that was so exciting to watch. Like him and Joel Embiid were just lighting it up, and like Seth Curry was looking like the number 2 guy at that point. Like this guy was dropping like 20 plus just easily, and this is what the Sixers could be having, right? If they just have some sort of other 3-point offense, but
I guess
it's still not enough, right?
In a future video, if the Mavs lose Luka, we'll probably talk about how bad of a trade that was for them. Yeah. So us mixing up the exact years, regardless, the kind of the totality of what the Sixers have right now is like their best pieces are Simmons, Maxey, Embiid, Tobias Harris, and Seth Curry. Did I say Seth Curry already?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well,
looking at the
I'll
roster,
put Seth Curry on there twice because he's really good.
They've got some people that can move around and people they should keep. Like they've got just looking at who they have, like they've got Danny Green. He's all right. They've got Tyrese. They've got Shake Milton. They got Matisse Thybulle. Like these are people they can do stuff with that you didn't list.
For sure, yeah.
They've got good pieces. They just gotta send off the good pieces that don't fit. Bring in some that do.
Yeah, those guys can definitely be used in some sort of trade leverage now, especially with those talks of that Ben Simmons being traded.
Yeah.
The
problem is that teams also want Tyrese Maxey, which is like they really did not give him up.
Yeah, it's just crazy, man. Yeah. It's crazy because like when I was looking at sort of all these like drafts like just before and looking at what the Sixers could have gotten. Hindsight, it's 2020, but
it's actually 2021.
Okay. All right. So like they got Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, right? Those 2 guys.
Yeah.
At least, at that time, Ben Simmons was seen as some next generational talent. Of course, he's not now, but at that time he was. But, like when they drafted Nerlens Noel, they also missed out on getting either CJ McCollum, Giannis, or Rudy Gobert. And I'm just like, you could have at least gotten a Gobert. You were getting a lot of centers, right?
Look at Marco Fultz here. They could have
and then
they could have had De'Aaron Fox. They could have had Markkanen. No, I mean Luke Kennard or Laurie Markkanen. One of them was that year.
And even when getting Jahlil Okafor, I mean Jahlil Okafor had a good debut, but then again, it's like with the way that the offense was changing, it didn't turn out to be good.
They already had 2 centers. Like, why draft a third and then draft a fourth? Like,
and the thing is, it's even worse because what they missed out on, by getting Jahlil Okafor, they missed out on Kristaps Porzingis, Terry Rozier, and Devin Booker. Devin Booker, man,
and Kelly Oubre. And campaign.
They missed out on so much by just getting centers.
Yeah.
Like Sam Hinkie and Elton Brand, like what were they thinking? It's just Sam Hinkie wanted to get all these like draft picks. Elton Brand wanted all of them to be centers.
This is why rebuilding is so hard, because you could have 3 picks or you could have 30 picks, but if you can't land a star, you're not gonna evolve past a rebuild. The Suns, they didn't have very many. They didn't have a large assortment of picks. They actually traded some away at times, but in the end, look, they drafted Devin Booker, right? They drafted they traded for Mikal Bridges. They did things
campaign
to acquire talent.
Oh wait, so it was all because of like the Sixers screwing up that the Suns were able to like.
Thank you, Sixers.
It's really
literally.
well. Yes.
Oh wow, how the turntables, right? It's just, man, dude, that's just
So all in all, it was just a combination of poor draft choices, poor development, giving up on guys too early, not establishing a winning culture, not hiring the right guys. I don't think Brett Brown was really the right guy to hire, in my opinion. Or Doc Rivers
being Philadelphia.
Yes. Yeah, being that bad in a city that will boo their own players, not a good decision,
man. I'm telling you guys, if you guys are not a Philly fan, just take some time, listen to some Philly podcasts. It is absolutely livid, especially after the playoffs, man. They go crazy. It's just.
There was so you remember when Joel Embiid he tweeted at the fans to like calm down or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Did you see that one dude like respond to him? That was like, Joel needs to shut up. He's never done anything in the playoffs. He sucks. He's always injured. Blah, blah, blah. Like I'm not saying all Philly fans like this, but like, man, like some of y'all can't even appreciate the talent you got on your team. Like, you know how many teams would kill for Joel Embiid? Like,
I'll take him.
Man, you don't need him. Get out of here.
Yeah, you already took everybody. You already took everybody else.
You're taking the
Let me
kids
finish the job.
What more do you want?
Let me finish the job.
Yeah, man.
It's so weird how NBA stuff works out like that. Just how the Sixers messing up or screwing up or not taking the right guys ended up with another team really, really benefiting off it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's happening with the Warriors, because teams are being dumb. The Spurs they didn't take Moses Moody, so he fell to them. The Thunder didn't take Jonathan Kuminga, so he fell to the Warriors. Man, teams are giving the Warriors a new dynasty eventually. Like they're handling.
They're coming back, man, easily.
For sure, bro. Unless, you know what? Unless the Wizards trade Bradley Beal for the picks that they just had
and Steph Curry. And Klay Thompson.
It's probably not going to happen. The only way to stop this Warriors future dynasty that might happen is for the Wizards to just give Beal to the Warriors for Moody, Kuminga, Wiseman, and like another pick. Like, that's the only way to stop this, bro. Otherwise,
oh man,
what are you gonna do? If
Beal demands out, I'd say that's the package they go for.
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, I mean, I think that we've summed it up enough how much the Sixers have failed with everything, just about. If you guys enjoyed this, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. You guys want to say anything to close it out?
I think the process needs like a software update or something. Too many centers.
Yeah. All right.
They need to change it. It's no longer the process.
Yeah, they need to change
It's the
dumpster fire.
Hey, yep, I do want to say I'm a little bit worried for the Thunder, a little bit, just a little bit, because if they do not nail they have so many picks, but if they don't hit on them,
They gotta
they
hit
might
one
end
of
up
them.
like the Sixers. Like,
Hey, maybe they'll draft my little brother. Maybe.
all right, that's enough of that. This has been. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you guys next time. See ya.
Take it easy, guys.
Adios.